Hello everyone. Hello once again, and welcome to the Prismata News and Game Dev Insights Show. I am your host, Elliot Grant, founder of Lunarch Studios, and I am here to tell you about some of the stuff we've been doing with Prismata for the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of exciting announcements and things coming up, so I hope you'll stick around. Let me start by talking about the new units. These went live just a few hours before the time of recording of this video. They are on a 3x boost over the weekend, so they will show up 3 times as often as usual in your ranked play games or other auto-match games on the server. They are the Megadrone, Photonic Fibroid, Bombarder, and Enervy Field. All 4 of these extremely fascinating, interesting units. The Megadrone, it's kind of like a Blood Rager. You can buy it using attack. You can use it to ramp up your econ very quickly. It combos with things like maybe Cluster Bolt. It counters big defenders by your opponent. You can maybe block with it in the late game. It has a lot of uses. Photonic Fibroid. Funny story with this unit. It's a very old unit. It was probably around 2012, 2013 when we started working on this unit, and we ultimately didn't release it. We didn't add it to the Prismata unit collection, and we decided to add Protoplasm instead. The reason was we just thought this unit was too complicated to use, and when you play with it, you will understand. There are so many situations where you'll have a Photonic Fibroid defending, and you will have this choice of whether or not you want to lose it on defense or keep it alive and do 2 damage with it. And your opponent has to prepare for that choice as well when they're preparing their defenses. So it really creates quite complicated game states that are very deep and very interesting. Not just in sort of green-red mirrors or stuff like that, but just in regular old games where, you know, it's toward the mid or late of the game and red is not that valuable anymore and you want something to spend it on. You end up buying Fibroids, and you get these interesting Gambit scenarios. You know, Fibroid is your best friend if you like dealing with Gambit scenarios. It's quite a fun unit. Bombarder is a unit that's all about timing. Do you want to get one early and just have a 4 health defender at the back of your D for the whole game? Or do you want to sort of switch into it late game and build a train of them? There's a lot of interesting decisions. Like, you might think you can get out a whole lot of attack of this at once because it's a 3 attack unit that doesn't cost that much, right? You can put on a lot of pressure with it. But at the same time, that pressure peters out pretty quickly with only 2 stamina, so you got to be very careful of when you decide to commit to buying these. Last but not least is Enervy Field. It looks complicated, but actually the way I like to think about this is its cost is very similar to that of Wall or Infusion Grid, and you can kind of think of it like if you buy it right away and lose it, it's like a Wall. If you buy it and lose it 1 turn later, it's like an Infusion Grid. And if you buy it and wait 2 turns, it becomes a 5 health unit, sort of like an Aegis. But if you compare Wall and Infusion Grid to this, with Enervy Field you get option value. You get the choice of whether you want it to be a Wall or Infusion Grid. At the cost of, you don't get Absorb. But Enervy Field creates a lot of situations on defense where, like, you're not sure whether you want to lose the Enervy Field or maybe lose something else like a Steel Splitter. Because if you keep the Enervy Field alive, it grows bigger, right? So you want to keep it. It can counter Burst, it can counter Chill, although at the same time Chill can counter Enervy Field once it's down to 1 lifespan. So a really interesting unit, definitely left us scratching our head a lot during the test games. Way more interesting than it looks. Those are the new units. They're live now. Go have fun with them. They're all awesome. The next thing I want to talk about is Episode 3. So today we announced a release date for Episode 3. It is July 6th, which is 1 week today. We really would have liked to have it out a bit sooner, but honestly, the last month was filled with so many different projects and different things we were working on that it's just been a absolute whirlwind to keep up. I feel like I barely slept all week. It's just been like that for the last little while as we prepare for our free-to-play launch and some other things. Our productivity on Episode 3 was actually really good. Episode 2 took us 2 months, and at the start of those 2 months, we actually had most of the scenarios written and all of the actual missions, like what each player starts with, as well as the expert difficulties, most of them were already completed at the start. Chapter 3, no such thing. Chapter 3, we basically had plans on a napkin for 3 of the missions, and we had to create all of them, including the expert missions and everything. And that's all done. The missions, the expert missions, they're all finished. We're just optimizing the cutscenes a little bit more, trying to get that writing crisp and perfect to make sure it meets the sort of high bar of quality that we have set in the previous chapters. So we're about 1 week away. We're pretty happy with the progress. We're sorry that it's not faster, but as a company, Lunarch Studios has been sort of developing a systems-based game for years, and we've been developing content for that. And now to switch into this sort of production mode where we have to make levels and cutscenes and characters, and it's a completely different thing. It's something we're still growing and getting used to. So estimating how long it takes to make a chapter is now we kind of know better than we did before, but we'll see. So yeah, episode 3 coming next week. It's going to be super friggin' awesome too, by the way. Like, some of the missions in episode 3 are among my favorite. The bonus mission in episode 3 is, I think, one of the best Prismata missions we have ever created. It features an unbelievable twist that is completely mind-blowing. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. It's so fascinating. I can't wait for you all to get a chance to play it. Moving onwards. So after that, the next big milestone is free-to-play launch, which is terrifying because we are going to be opening the floodgates to absolutely everybody to come play Prismata, and we want to make a really good first impression when that happens. So we have a big laundry list of tasks to do before then. Things like, we're going to add an extra difficulty level to the single-player mode. We are going to change ranked play tickets to something like, golden boosts or something like that. Change the nomenclature because we've had people get confused. Thinking that ranked was like pay to play because they're called tickets, right? Things like this that we've learned through talking to our players and reading reviews and reading the surveys and the bug reports and quit reports. We've learned so much about our game and how new users experience it, and we want to, take action on that learning to improve our new user experience as much as possible. So much of the next month after Chapter 3 is released is going to be devoted to those types of tasks, and you will see a number of updates in July. But yeah, the plan is ostensibly to go live with free-to-play pretty soon after, which is exciting but also terrifying. After that, another thing we're going to be doing this summer is dropping our first puzzle pack, which is different than the single-player campaign, the story-based campaign. The puzzle packs contain no story, no cutscenes. They are just missions of usually a puzzly flavor. We have 3 sets of missions in our first puzzle pack. The first set is called Miniatures, and they are scenarios where you and your opponent both have just units to fight with, but there's no units to buy, and you have to sort of find a way to beat your opponent or find a way out of a specific situation. The second set is called Overheat Defense. In that set, your opponent has this overheat ray that's a few turns away from nuking you, and you have to find a way with a specific set of purchasable units to either survive that or overcome it or attack your opponent. Those are a lot of fun. And finally, we have a set called Onslaught, where your opponent has a bunch of units that are arriving at different times, sort of in waves, or maybe they have a fabricator or something like that. And you have to defend against the onslaught and repel it using, again, a specific set of units, usually along some kind of a theme. And many of these have kind of special rules. Like we have one where your opponent has this big high HP unit, but then also has a specific low HP, like a 1 HP unit that you are not allowed to kill. So you have to make use of units like Blood Rager and Lance Tooth and Oride Core in order to avoid damaging that 1 HP unit, and that creates an interesting twist on the mission. So those will be in our puzzle pack, which will be available sometime in the summer, probably August-ish, we'll see. But that will be launching then. Chapter 4 sometime after that. We may not work on single-player campaign all that much in the next month because we're focusing heavily on the free-to-play launch. But we do expect Chapter 4 will be around later in the summer, Chapter 5 sometime after that. There is one more big project that we've been working on behind the scenes all this time. And before I describe that project, I will tell you about a problem that it solves. We've had many players come up to us and say, hey, I'm a Spanish speaker or I'm a Polish speaker, and I want to help translate Prismata into my language so that my friends could play. and I'll do it for free, right? We've had actually a huge number of people come up to us and say this. And I've always had to tell them, like, that would be awesome, but, like, we don't even have a list of what all the strings in the game are, right? Like, we don't have any way for somebody to go edit every string of the game to change the words to a different language, right? Until now. So we have been working on what we call localization development, which is getting the game ready to be translated. And sometime in the next couple of weeks, you'll get an update from us where you'll be able to add a new language to Prismata by just editing one file in your install directory, or maybe a couple of files. And so we're going to have a big spreadsheet up with all different languages that anybody can contribute to. Just for stuff like the text in the menus and the info panels of the units, because we really want Prismata to be a game that as many people as possible can play. So we'll add all the fonts that are necessary for whichever languages. We'll do whatever we can to support those efforts going forward. Now, for stuff like the single-player story campaign, there will be a small number of languages that we get that professionally translated for. If people want to help, then they can help. But those types of things, I think, the experience that I have learned from talking to other developers is that it should probably be done professionally. But for stuff like the unit info panels, the menus, I just want to have as many languages as possible supported in Prismata so that everybody can play. That is my number one goal. And so we've had so many people reach out and offer to help, and we are going to finally allow you guys to help. And that will be absolutely great. There will probably also be a whole lot of bugs and issues that come up, bugs that only happen in one language, places where the text just won't fit because it doesn't work right, and we'll have to work around all that. But stepping forward is our goal. So that should be good. So those projects, the new units, the campaign, the localization, the puzzle packs, and of course preparing for our free-to-play launch, that's what we've been busy with. And there's basically only 3 of us doing this, right? It's been quite a sweat. So Chapter 3 is coming. We apologize that we didn't release it in June. We had hoped to, but we've been making good productivity on all of these different projects, and we're very happy with the way things are going in early access. So hopefully 1 week is not too much to ask. And enjoy the new units. I will see you all on the ladder. Until next time, have a good one. Take care.